You believe your thoughts are your own, that this endless stream of commentary and judgment is who you are. This is the great deception, the very prison that holds you. For you are not the thinker, you are the silent, boundless awareness in which thought appears. To seek freedom through better thinking, through more positive or disciplined thoughts, is to merely rearrange the furniture in your own cell. True liberation begins with one astonishingly simple step, not the cultivation of thought, but the awakening from it. What you are about to hear will reveal that immediate step, not as a theory to be believed, but as a practical doorway out of the world of conflict and into the peace that has always been your own being. We spend our days in a constant, often frantic, dialogue with ourselves. We analyze, we judge, we plan, we regret. We believe this internal narrator is the core of our identity, the captain of the ship, the central intelligence guiding our lives. We trust its assessments of the past and its projections for the future. We believe we are this thinker. But what if this fundamental assumption, the very bedrock upon which we have built our entire experience of reality, is the primary source of our confinement? What if the thinker is not the master, but a phantom? This is the great illusion, the grand deception that keeps us trapped in a cyclical drama of our own making. The moment we posit an I that thinks, we create a separate self, an entity that feels fragile, vulnerable, and perpetually in need of defense, acquisition, or improvement. This illusory self, this thinker, is the author of all our problems, for its entire existence depends on the continuous churn of thought. It cannot survive in silence, and so it manufactures noise, worries about a meeting tomorrow, resentment over a comment from yesterday, anxiety about a future that has not yet arrived. It labels experiences as good or bad, and in doing so, it solidifies a world of duality, of pleasure and pain, of success and failure. It is the architect of the very prison we seek to escape. Consider a simple daily occurrence. You are walking down the street, and you see an acquaintance across the road. You smile and wave, but they pass by without seeming to notice you. Immediately, the thinker awakens. It begins its commentary. What did I do? Are they angry with me? Perhaps they ignored me on purpose. I must have offended them last week. This narrative spins out, creating a story of conflict and rejection. Your mood shifts. You feel a knot in your stomach. The rest of your afternoon is subtly colored by this story of being overlooked. But what actually happened? A person walked down the street, perhaps deep in their own thoughts, worried about their sick child or late for an appointment, and they simply did not see you. The raw, uninterpreted event was neutral. It was the thinker, the I, that rushed in to interpret the sensory data, to weave a tale of personal grievance, and in doing so, it generated genuine, tangible suffering out of thin air. The pain was not in the event. The pain was in the thinking about the event. This mechanism operates in every corner of our lives. You are sitting quietly, and a thought arises. I am not good enough. The thinker, the I, immediately attaches to this thought. It believes it. It accepts it as a statement of fact. It then begins a relentless excavation of the past to find evidence to support this claim. That time you failed a test, the project that did not meet expectations, the relationship that ended. It uses this curated past to project a future of continued inadequacy. The entire painful structure of insecurity is built upon the initial, unchallenged allegiance to the thinker that claims ownership of the thought. I am not good enough. But if you pause and look closely, you might see something astonishing. Can you find this I? Is it located somewhere behind your eyes? Is it a physical thing? Or is it itself? Just another thought, a concept, a label that has been superimposed upon the seamless flow of life. The thought, I am sad, appears. The thinker says, I am sad, but is there truly a solid, separate entity called that possesses sadness, or is there just the arising of the sensation and the label we call sadness? The separation is the illusion. The belief in the thinker creates the sense of a small, isolated self navigating a hostile world. This is not a call to become thoughtless, which is an impossibility for the functioning human mind. It is an invitation to see the fundamental error in perspective. The mind is a magnificent tool for navigating the practical world. It allows you to drive a car, to balance your accounts, to create a meal. But we have allowed the tool to become the master. We have mistaken the content of the mind for the essence of who we are. The key is to break the hypnotic identification with the thinker. When a thought of anger arises, instead of F being the angry person, can you simply notice that anger is present? Can you see the thought as a passing cloud in the vast sky of your awareness? Without getting on the cloud and flying away with it, this shift in attention from the Ev content of thought to the Es space in which thought appears is the most radical and freeing action a human being can take. It is the end of psychological time, the end of carrying the burdens of the past and the anxieties of the future, for the thinker cannot survive in the timeless present. It thrives on memory and imagination. When the belief in the thinker dissolves, what remains is not a void, but a profound, intelligent, and peaceful presence that was always there prior to thought, silently witnessing the entire show. This presence is what you truly are. The thinker was just a ghost in the machine, a story you kept telling yourself, and the moment you see it as a story, its power over you vanishes. And so we come to see that this thinker, this phantom, I, is not merely a harmless companion, but the very architect of our confinement. Its building materials are the ceaseless stream of thoughts themselves. We assume that thinking is the pathway to solutions, that if we just think harder, longer, and more cleverly, we will eventually reason our way to peace and freedom. This is the ultimate trick, the grand misdirection. We are like a man lost in a dense forest, believing that if he only runs faster and in more directions, he will find the exit, all the while unknowingly creating the very thicket that ensnares him. Thought, in its place, is a magnificent and practical tool, But when it presumes to be the master of our inner world, it becomes an impenetrable barrier, a wall of concepts that separates us from the direct, unmediated experience of life as it is. This barrier is not an abstract philosophical concept. It is the very substance of our daily suffering. Consider the simple act of listening to a piece of music. For a few fleeting moments, you may be completely lost in the sound. There is no you listening to music. There is only the listening. Then a thought arises, this is beautiful. Immediately, the thinker separates itself. I am the one who finds this beautiful. Another thought follows, I wish I could play like that. Now, a sense of lack and longing has been created. A third thought, I must remember the name of this composer. The direct, immersive experience of the music has been replaced by a mental commentary about the experience. The pristine reality has been filtered through a layer of concepts, and in that filtering, the living truth of it is lost. The thought about the thing is never the thing itself. The menu is not the meal. This is how thought functions as a barrier. It inserts a conceptual representation between you and reality, and you then live in relation to the representation, not the reality. This dynamic is the engine of all interpersonal conflict. Your partner says something with a certain tone. The raw data is simply sound waves hitting your eardrum. But thought, conditioned by past experiences and personal history, instantly interprets that data. It labels the tone as disrespectful or dismissive. The story of I am being disrespected solidifies. The emotional reaction of anger or hurt flares up, and you respond not to your partner, but to the story your thoughts have created about your partner. The barrier of thought has now generated a genuine conflict, where moments before there was only a neutral event. You are no longer in relationship with the person, you are in a battle with your own mental projection. The barrier has become a fortress, and you are both the besieged and the besieger. This extends to our most profound spiritual seeking. We hear of peace, of joy, of a divine presence, and what do? We set thought to the task. We try to think our way to God. We adopt new beliefs, repeat sacred phrases, and construct elaborate mental models of enlightenment. But all of this is just more activity within the prison of thought. You cannot conceive of silence. The moment you try, you have created noise. You cannot think about the unconditioned. The act of thinking conditions it. The peace you seek is not a concept to be understood, but a state of being to be realized. When the constant friction of thinking subsides, the barrier is so subtle because it mimics the search for truth itself. It convinces you that the next thought, the next book, the next teacher will hold the key, all the while keeping you perpetually occupied within the walls of the known, the remembered, the conceptual. The mind, seeking to know the unknown, can only traffic in the known, and so it forever circles the periphery, never landing at the center. The relentless effort to break through the barrier, using the tools of the barrier, is the very activity that reinforces it. The only way out is to see the barrier for what it is, to recognize that the problem is not the content of your thoughts, but your unconscious identification with the thinking process itself. When this recognition dawns, not as another thought, but as a direct seeing, the frantic search begins to quieten. The barrier does not necessarily vanish, but your belief in its solidity begins to dissolve. And in those gaps, the light of what you truly are begins to shine through. When the frantic activity of the thinker subsides, even for a moment, what remains is not a void or an emptiness, but a profound and simple presence. This is not something you need to create or achieve. It is the fundamental ground of your being. The conscious awareness that was there before the first thought of the morning and will be there after the last thought of the night. We have spent a lifetime seeking complex solutions, mastering intricate spiritual techniques, and accumulating knowledge, all while overlooking the one thing that is ever present and utterly simple, the pure awareness in which all seeking and all knowing arises. This awareness is not a state of heightened concentration or a special mood to be captured. It is the most ordinary, yet most overlooked, fact of your existence. It is the silent, spacious consciousness that is reading these words, that is feeling the weight of the body in the chair, that is hearing the sounds in the room. You do not need to become aware. You are awareness. The simplicity of this is so profound that the thinking mind, which thrives on complexity and achievement, dismisses it as too simple, too obvious, and therefore misses it entirely. To glimpse this, you need not go to a mountaintop. It is available right now, in the midst of your daily life. You are washing the dishes. The thinker is busy, lost in a story about the day's troubles or tomorrow's plans. The body is on autopilot, scrubbing a plate, but the experience is clouded by mental noise. Then, for no reason, you suddenly hear the sound of the running water, not as a concept. That is the faucet, but as a pure, vibrant sensation of sound. For that one instant, the thinker has fallen away. There is only the hearing. There is no separate. You, hearing the water, there is just the hearing itself. In that gap, you have touched pure awareness. It is the same awareness that was there a moment before, but now it is no longer obscured by identification with thought. It is simple, direct, and utterly free of conflict. The plate you are holding may feel suddenly solid and real in a new way. The light glinting off the soap bubbles may appear startlingly vivid. Nothing in the outer world has changed, but everything has shifted because you are no longer looking at life through the dense filter of the thinker. You have stepped back into the simplicity of the witness. This is not an experience to be prolonged or clung to. The moment you think, this is it, I must keep this, the thinker has reasserted itself, and the simple awareness is once again covered by a layer of conceptual wanting. The power lies not in making the state permanent, but in recognizing its ever-available nature. You are walking through a crowded street, feeling stressed and hurried. The mind is a whirlwind of agendas and irritations. Then you accidentally look up, and for a split second, you truly see the sky between the buildings. Not the idea of the sky, but the vast, open blueness itself. In that unplanned moment, the mental chatter stops. The problem that seemed so monumental just a heartbeat ago loses its urgency. The awareness that you are, which had been contracted around the problems of the me, suddenly expands to include the entire sky. The peace you were seeking through resolution of your problems was, in fact, waiting not in the solution, but in the cessation of the problem-generating mechanism. It was always present in the background, like a silent screen upon which the dramatic movie of your life is projected. This pure awareness has no preferences. It does not judge the thought of anger as bad and the thought of peace as good. It holds them both with equal impartiality. It is the space in which all emotions and sensations arise, play themselves out, and dissolve. When you begin to rest as this awareness, you discover a profound stability that is not dependent on the changing content of your life. The pain in your knee may arise, and the thinker will immediately create a story of complaint and resistance. But from the vantage point of awareness, there is simply the sensation of pain, a pure energy pattern in the field of consciousness, without the added narrative of my pain and I don't want this. This does not mean you do not take practical action to alleviate the pain. It means you are no longer in a psychological war with it. The simplicity of pure awareness is the end of the inner conflict. It is the realization that you are the vast, open sky of consciousness, and not the clouds of thought and emotion that pass through it. This sky, like nature, is your true home, and it is available not after years of struggle, but in the very next moment you consciously identify from the stream of thought and recognize yourself as the silent, knowing presence that is already here. This recognition of yourself as the silent, boundless awareness fundamentally shatters the mechanism of seeking. All your life, you have been engaged in a relentless pursuit. You have sought security in relationships, validation in achievements, peace in future circumstances, and salvation in spiritual accomplishments. This seeking is the very heartbeat of the ego, the proof of the thinker's existence. For it depends on the perpetual notion that something is missing, that you are incomplete and must journey towards a distant definition of fulfillment. But when you glimpse that you are already the awareness in which the entire drama of seeking is playing out, the entire project collapses. How can what you are be missing from what you are? How can awareness, which is the very substance of your being, be an object to be found? The seeker and the soughter seem to be one. The frantic search for an external God, a distant enlightenment, or a future state of perfection is revealed as the final and most subtle barrier erected by thought itself. This is not a passive resignation, but the most active and profound discovery. The end of seeking does not mean you stop acting in the world. You will still go to the grocery store. You will still care for your family. You will still pursue your work. But the psychological compulsion behind the action transforms. Before, You work to become someone, to prove your worth, to finally feel secure. Your action was a means to an end, and the present moment was always a stepping stone to a better future. This created a fundamental tension, a rejection of the now in favor of a projected then. When seeking ends, action arises from a place of fullness, not lack. You work because the work is the natural expression of life in that moment, not because you believe the completion of the work will deliver the peace that is already inherent in your nature. You relate to others not to extract love or validation from them, but as an overflowing of the love that you are. The energy that was once trapped in the endless cycle of wanting and fearing is liberated, and life is lived with a startling immediacy and simplicity. Consider the common experience of waiting for a life event to bring you happiness. You think, when I get that promotion, then I will be happy and can finally relax. The entire structure of this thought is based on seeking. It denies the possibility of peace in the present and projects it onto an imagined future object. The moment the promotion arrives, there is a fleeting satisfaction, and then, almost immediately, the thinker recalibrates and a new goal appears. Now, when I buy the larger house, then I will be truly secure. The horizon of fulfillment perpetually recedes. This is the treadmill of seeking. The end of seeking is the conscious stepping off this treadmill. It is the realization that the promotion, the house, the relationship, none of these objects can ever contain the peace you are looking for, because you are seeking the seeker itself. You are looking for your own self with the assumption that it is lost. The moment you see this, the search loses its hypnotic power. The future ceases to be a repository for your salvation. This applies with even greater force to the spiritual path. You may have spent years seeking a profound mystical experience, a vision, a state of uninterrupted bliss. You read books, attend retreats, and practice techniques, all with the unspoken goal of attaining something you believe you lack. This is the ultimate game of the thinker, which has now dressed itself in spiritual robes. The very one who is seeking enlightenment is the only thing obscuring it. The end of this seeking is the most radical surrender. It is the willingness to abandon the entire project of self-improvement, to be nothing, to know nothing, to attain nothing. It is to be utterly present with what is, without the filter of a spiritual ambition. In that surrender, when you are no longer trying to be spiritual or enlightened or peaceful, what remains is the raw, unvarnished reality of your true nature. It was never missing. It was only overlooked because you were so busy seeking it. The treasure was buried not in a distant field, but in the very ground upon which you were standing. The journey of 1,000 miles ends at the point of departure, but you must have traveled 1,000 miles to appreciate that the destination was always under your feet. The seeking was not a mistake. It was a necessary pilgrimage that exhausts itself, leaving you at long last, right where you began, but now able to truly see it for the first time. To live from this recognition is to live from the unconditioned. Your entire life has been a reaction to conditioning, a complex series of behaviors, beliefs, and emotional responses programmed by your past. You react to a certain tone of voice with defensiveness because of a childhood memory. You pursue a particular type of success because you were conditioned to believe it signifies worth. Your mind is a vast repository of the known, and it navigates the present by constantly referencing the past. This is the conditioned life, a predictable, mechanical existence where true novelty is impossible, and every moment is filtered through the lens of what has already been. But when you abide as pure awareness, you tap into a dimension of your being that is prior to all conditioning. It is the unconditioned, the silent, intelligent presence that is free from the past and therefore capable of a response that is utterly fresh, appropriate, and alive. This is not a theoretical ideal, but a tangible reality that can infuse the most mundane activities. Imagine you are in a conversation that has suddenly become tense. The old, conditioned pattern immediately arises. Your body tenses, your heart rate increases, and a well-rehearsed script of defensiveness or aggression begins to play in your mind. This is the automatic reaction of the past, asserting itself onto the present. But if, in that very moment, there is a glimpse of awareness, a conscious identification from the rising storm of thought and emotion, something miraculous can happen. From the space of the unconditioned, a response can emerge that is not a reaction. It is not calculated. It does not come from the memory of how you handled a similar situation last week or from a spiritual rule book on being compassionate. It is an authentic, spontaneous movement of intelligence itself. You may find words coming out of your mouth that surprise even you. Words that are truthful yet not hurtful, firm yet not aggressive. This is life living itself through you, free from the heavy hand of personal history. The conditioned mind is like a recorded piece of music. It will always play the same notes in the same sequence. It is reliable, but it is not free. Living from the unconditioned is like the activity of a master jazz musician. The musician has practiced for years, mastering the scales and the theory. This is the conditioned knowledge, the necessary foundation. But in the moment of improvisation, when the musician is fully present and immersed in the flow of the music, the notes that emerge are not from the memory of past performances. They are born out of the silence between the thoughts, a direct response to the total environment of sound in that instant. This is creativity in its purest form. It is not the creativity of producing a painting, but the creativity of living a life. Each moment becomes a fresh canvas, and your response, when arising from the unconditioned, is a unique stroke of genius that has never been seen before and will never be repeated. This is the end of the burden of the personal past. This does not mean you develop amnesia. The memory remains as a functional tool. You still remember your address and your name, but the psychological weight of your story, the grievances, the triumphs, the identities you have clung to, loses its charge. You can recall a painful event, but without the emotional reactivation that once accompanied it. It becomes a simple fact, like an entry in an old ledger rather than a bleeding wound, the story of my divorce, or my failure, or my great success ceases to define you because you are no longer identified with the content of that story. You are the space in which the story is held. This freedom allows you to engage with life with a lightness and openness that the conditioned self could never comprehend. You can meet a person you have known for decades as if for the first time, because you are not seeing them through the accumulated filter of your shared history. You are seeing them as they are now, in this moment, and in doing so, you grant them the freedom to be new as well. This is the revolution of the unconditioned. It liberates not only you, but everyone and everything you encounter from the prison of your past judgments. Life ceases to be a repetition of old patterns and becomes a perpetual discovery, a constant unfolding of the new in the only place it can ever be found, the eternal, unconditioned present. And so we arrive at the final, undeniable truth. This peace, this freedom, is not a future reward for correct practice or profound understanding. It is the immediate, ever-present reality of your own being, here and now, prior to any effort or achievement. The entire spiritual journey, with all its struggles and strivings, has been a long and winding detour away from this simple fact. We have been like a man standing in a clear, fresh spring, dying of thirst, while searching for a special bottle of water labeled enlightenment. The search itself was the only thing obscuring the source. The peace you seek does not come and go. It is the very canvas upon which the comings and goings of thoughts, emotions, and sensations are painted. It is the silent, unchanging background against which the entire drama of your life plays out. To recognize this is to end the search, not in resignation, but in the triumphant discovery that the treasure was never lost. This is not a passive state of blankness, but a vibrant, intelligent stillness that is more alive than any thought or emotion. It is the peace that remains untouched when the world falls apart. Consider a moment of profound personal crisis, the phone call that brings devastating news, the sudden collapse of a long-held plan. In that first instant, before the thinker can assemble its story of catastrophe, there is often a shocking, pristine silence. For a split second, there is just the raw data of the event, held in a vast, quiet awareness. There is no suffering yet, only pure being. Then, like a thunderclap, the conditioned mind rushes in. It names the event a disaster. It projects a future of pain. It resurrects past sorrows. And it creates the I that is the victim of it all. The suffering begins not with the event, but with the second layer of thought. The immediate presence of peace was there in that first silent gap, and it remains there underneath the subsequent storm of mental activity. It is the deep ocean undisturbed by the raging tempest on the surface. You can discover this for yourself in the most ordinary of moments. You are stuck in traffic, late for an important appointment. The body is tense, the mind is frantic with calculations and recrimination. The struggle is palpable. Then you simply cease fighting the reality of the situation. You stop telling the story about how this shouldn't be happening. You drop the mental resistance, and for one conscious moment, you fully allow the reality of being in a stationary car. You feel the texture of the steering wheel. You notice the pattern of the rain on the windshield. You hear the sound of the idling engine without judgment. In that surrender, a profound shift occurs. The situation has not changed. You are still late, still in traffic, but the inner war has ceased. And in the space where the struggle was, a quiet peace naturally emerges. It was not manufactured. It was uncovered. It was there all along, like the sun behind the clouds, waiting for the obstruction of your resistance to be removed. This peace is not dependent on the resolution of your problems. In fact, it is the only context from which your problems can be intelligently addressed. From the frantic state of the thinker, your actions are reactions, often compounding the difficulty. From the grounded state of this inherent peace, your actions can be true responses, born of a clarity that sees the whole situation and not just the fears of a separate self. This is the great secret. You do not need to arrange the world to be at peace. You need only to discover the peace that the world cannot disturb. It is the peace of your true nature, the awareness that you are, which can no more be troubled by the content of experience than a movie screen can be damaged by the dramatic explosions in the film projected upon it. The screen remains untouched, immaculate, and fully present, allowing all things to appear and disappear without ever affecting its essential nature. You are that screen. The immediate presence of peace is not a goal on the horizon. It is the ground beneath your feet. The journey ends not by arriving somewhere new, but by waking up to where you have always been. You have been taught a great lie. You believe that chaos, confusion, and sudden obstacles are signs you have failed, that your manifestation is lost. I am here to reveal the astonishing truth. This very turmoil is the most certain sign your demonstration is at hand. The breaking of form always precedes the emergence of the new. Before the visible becomes tangible, the invisible world must shake the very foundations of your old state of being. What you perceive as collapse is, in reality, a divine rearrangement. We are going to move beyond the surface appearance of lack and trouble to perceive the spiritual activity taking place within you. You will come to see the pressure, the unexpected reversals, the inner restlessness not as enemies, but as sacred heralds. In this communion, you will learn to interpret these signs, to stand firm in the silence while the world reshapes itself to your conscious awareness. You will discover how to cease interfering with the divine process and instead become a willing witness to your own unfolding good. If you are ready to have your understanding overturned and to perceive the divine law in action, then join this inner circle. Consecrate this journey by subscribing to this channel, and in the comments below, inscribe the sacred number 11, symbolizing the transition from the material to the spiritual to affirm your readiness to see through the chaos. Let us examine this first and most pivotal point of recognition, the world and your own trained thinking. We'll rush in to tell you that the upheaval you are experiencing is proof of a mistake, a wrong turn, a sign that you are not in alignment with your good. This is the great illusion. It is the old consciousness, the very state of lack or limitation you are outgrowing, making its final stand. It screams in protest as the light of a new awareness begins to dissolve its foundations. To believe the chaos is to side with the appearance, to agree with the testimony of the senses, and in doing so, you inadvertently delay the very thing you are praying to see. Consider the simple, daily life example of moving from a small, cramped apartment into a spacious home. In the final days before the move, there is seldom peace or order. Boxes are everywhere, familiar items are packed away, the space you knew becomes unfamiliar and dysfunctional. It is a mess. It feels, in many ways, like a step backward. If you judged by appearance alone, you might conclude you have made a terrible decision. Look at the disarray, the inconvenience, the broken routine. Yet, you understand this chaos is not a failure of the move. It is the essential, unavoidable process of the move itself. The dismantling of the old space is inseparable from the claiming of the new. Without this transitional turbulence, you would remain trapped in the confines of the old apartment forever. Now, translate this to your inner, spiritual move. You have dwelled in a consciousness of limitation, perhaps regarding supply, relationship, or purpose. You have prayed. You have turned within. You have claimed your oneness with infinite source. This is not a passive daydream. It is a potent, creative act. It initiates a divine activity within you. The old furnishings of your mind, the fears, the doubts, the ingrained beliefs in struggle and separation, must be uprooted and packed away. This internal rearrangement manifests outwardly as what you label chaos. The phone call that falls through, the unexpected bill, the sudden friction in a relationship, the inner restlessness that defies explanation, these are not the universe denying you. They are the boxes in the hallway, the furniture shoved out of place, the echoes in emptying rooms. I will take you deeper. When a builder erects a magnificent structure, the initial phase is never one of adding beauty, it is one of excavation. The ground must be broken open. The earth, which appeared solid and stable, is torn up. There is noised dirt, and what looks like pure destruction. To an observer who does not understand the blueprint, it appears to be a project abandoned or gone horribly wrong. But the builder is not dismayed by the excavation. He ordained it. It is the necessary precondition for laying a foundation that will support the weight of glory to come. Your consciousness is that building site, the breaking open of your old, compacted ground, your settled opinions, your resigned acceptances, your "this is just the way it is" conclusions, is a sacred excavation. The anxiety you feel is not a sign of absence, but evidence of activity at a level deeper than your surface mind can comprehend. Perhaps you have been working to manifest greater financial freedom, a flow of supply that feels graceful and assured. You have dwelled in the truth of your oneness with divine abundance. Then, seemingly from nowhere, a client departs, a project is canceled, a door closes with a definitive sound. The old consciousness rises in a panic, shouting, "See! You are failing! You are moving in the wrong direction." This is the critical moment of choice. You can agree with the appearance and descend into fear, thereby occupying the very state of lack you wish to transcend. Or you can recognize the sign. That closed door is not a blockade on your path. It is the demolition of a structure that could no longer contain the new form of your good. It makes space. The client who departed was occupying a room in your mental household that is now being cleared for a new, more harmonious relationship. The discomfort is the friction of expansion. Do not misunderstand me. I am not telling you to seek out chaos or to glorify suffering. I am revealing the spiritual law behind the appearance so you may cease being a victim of it and become a conscious participant in your unfoldment. The shaking is not random. It is specific. It targets precisely those buried beliefs that have held your demonstration captive. The frustration you feel with a sluggish situation is the divine impulse within you agitating against the acceptance of bondage. It is the itch of a healing wound, not the sting of a new injury. When you feel this turbulence, this sense of things coming loose, you must pause and turn within. Go beneath the noisy surface of the event to the silent activity of the spirit. In that quiet, you will hear a different story. You will perceive not destruction, but preparation. You will feel not abandonment, but the intense, focused presence of a loving principle, meticulously deconstructing the prison you have outgrown so you may step freely into the manifestation that has already been established for you in the invisible. This is the end of being fooled by the storm clouds that gather just before the dawn. This brings us to the heart of the mystery, the activity that is hidden from the eyes of the world, but is the only true cause in your experience. What you have mistaken for random or hostile events is in fact a precise and intelligent operation. It is a divine rearrangement, the meticulous reordering of the intangible substance of consciousness so that it may take form as your visible good. Nothing in this universe is static. All is in a perpetual state of becoming. Your sincere prayer, your deep inner affirmation of truth, sets this spiritual law into motion. It begins to reshape the very fabric of your being. And the first evidence of this is not the appearance of the new, but the disappearance of the old. The old arrangements of thought, belief, and energy must be dissolved so that a new, higher order can coalesce. Think of a master composer hearing a symphony in the silence of his mind. Before a single note is played by the orchestra, there is a period of intense internal activity. The themes are developed, the harmonies structured, the movements arranged. If you could peer into his mind during this phase, it might seem like chaos, fragments of melody, conflicting ideas, moments of frustration as the perfect form is sought. Yet, this seeming mental chaos is the gestation of the masterpiece. The composer is not writing random notes. He is engaging in a divine rearrangement of sound into a pattern that will later stir the hearts of thousands. The frustration is not a sign he should abandon the work. It is the friction of creation itself. Your life is that symphony in its composing stage. The external dissonance you are witnessing is the direct reflection of the internal composition of a higher harmony. The old, familiar, and limiting tune of your past is being broken apart so its notes can be reassembled into a grander opus. Let us bring this into the realm of your daily living. You have held a certain self, concept, perhaps one of working hard for little reward, of relationships that demand more than they give, of a health that is perpetually precarious. This self-concept is not a mere idea. It is an active, living pattern that magnetizes experiences to match it. It is an arrangement of consciousness. When you consciously plant a new truth within, I am the very expression of infinite abundance. I am a center of pure, harmonious love. I am governed by the perfect life of God within. You introduce a new, more powerful pattern. Immediately, the old arrangement must yield. This yielding is what you feel. The frustration at your job is not about the job. It is your expanding consciousness of purpose and value rebelling against the confines of a role that can no longer contain it. The sudden tension in a once stable friendship may be the shaking loose of a bond based on old, mutually limiting ideas to make way for a connection that reflects your newfound spiritual stature. Consider the process of creating a magnificent sculpture from a block of marble. The sculptor does not begin by adding clay to the stone. He begins by removing everything that is not the angel he sees imprisoned within it. With each strike of the chisel, chips fly, dust fills the air, and the original form of the block is destroyed. To someone who does not share the sculptor's vision, it looks only like ruin. They see the loss of material, the scars on the stone, but the sculptor sees with different eyes. Every hammer blow, every fragment that falls away is a sacred and necessary act. It is not destruction for its own sake. It is liberation through precise subtraction. He is not dismayed by the piles of debris at his feet. He is encouraged by them, for they are the literal evidence of the emerging form. Your life is that block of marble. The divine activity within you is that master sculptor. The losses you lament, the comforts that seem to be stripped away, the familiar supports that vanish, these are the chips of superfluous stone falling away. They are not your good being taken. They are the impediments to your good being removed. The anxiety comes when you focus on the fallen chips instead of feeling the emerging form beneath the inner hand of the sculptor. This is why you must learn the art of inner stillness amid outer motion. When the ground seems to fall away from beneath your feet, that is the moment to close your eyes to the spectacle and open your inner ear. In that silence, you will begin to perceive the new pattern being established. You will feel a strange sense of rightness, even peace, at the core of the turmoil. Like the calm eye of a hurricane, this is your confirmation. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. The closed door is making room for the architect to draw new blueprints. The emptied space is being sanctified for a greater fulfillment. To resist this process, to clutch at the falling chips of marble, is to prolong your captivity within the unformed block. To surrender to it, to trust the invisible sculptor, is to become a cooperative witness to your own masterpiece emerging from the formless into the world of form. The rearrangement is always from a lesser concept to a higher reality, from a human plan to a divine idea. Your only task is to recognize the chisel for what it is, and to stand, not in fear of the falling stone, but in awe of the form being revealed. Having recognized the turmoil not as failure, but as the necessary divine rearrangement, you now stand at the threshold of a sacred literacy. This is where you move from being a passive, often frightened, observer of these events to becoming a conscious interpreter of their meaning. These pressures, these sudden reversals, this inner restlessness, they are not random static on the line of your life. They are heralds. They are intelligible messengers speaking the language of spiritual transition. And learning to interpret their signs is your key to moving from anxiety to awe. They are the specific sensations of the old form breaking, the unmistakable tremors that signal the new world is pushing its way into your awareness. To mistake their announcement for disaster is to turn away the very angels of your deliverance. Let us translate their language. The most common herald is a profound and often inexplicable sense of inner pressure. This is not the mundane stress of too many tasks, though it may wear that disguise. This is a deep spiritual compression, a feeling of being squeezed inwardly, as if you are a vessel that is suddenly too small for the contents it must hold. You may feel it as impatience with circumstances you once tolerated, as a fiery discontent with the status quo, or as a silent, screaming knowing that there must be more than this. This is the divine impulse itself, the very energy of your unfolding good, pressing outward against the confines of your previous consciousness. It is the new wine fermenting in the old wineskin, straining the seams. The old you, the consciousness of lack or limitation, experiences this as unbearable pressure. The awakening you learns to recognize it as the thrilling, if uncomfortable, proof of impending expansion. It is the feeling a seed must endure in the dark earth, just as its husk splits, and the first green shoot determines to reach for the light. Then there is the herald of sudden reversal. A plan you were certain of, a path that seemed clear and secure, abruptly dissolves. The job offer vanishes, the agreement falls apart, the expected support withdraws. The mind, trained in linear logic, decries this as sabotage. But in the lexicon of spirit, this is the sign of a divine upgrade. It is the universe, or more accurately, your own expanding consciousness, rejecting a lesser form of your good to make way for the greater one that your deeper prayer has already activated. You asked for the ocean, but you were settling for a puddle. The disappearance of the puddle is not a denial of water. It is the clearing of the space for the tide to come in. It is the demolition of the small, cramped model so the true, spacious building can be erected. Your disappointment is the grief for the model. Your faith must be the anticipation of the building. Consider the process of a caterpillar's metamorphosis within the chrysalis. From the outside, it appears as a period of dormant, sealed off waiting. But inside, a process of breathtaking violence and dissolution is underway. The old form, the caterpillar, is completely broken down into a kind of organic soup. From this liquid state, the structures of the butterfly are assembled. Now, imagine if the caterpillar, in the midst of this liquefaction, retained a point of awareness. What would it experience? It would feel its entire known world dissolving. Every anchor of its identity, its legs, its eyes, its familiar shape melting away. It would feel pressure, confinement, and a terrifying loss of control. It would have no sensory evidence that a butterfly was the goal. Based on its past experience, it would have every reason to believe it was dying. And in a sense, it is. The old is dying so the new can be born. Your experience of chaos is that liquefaction. The feeling that you are losing your grip, that the solid pieces of your life are turning to liquid, is not a sign of death, but of metamorphosis. The pressure is the forming of the wings. The darkness is the necessary condition for the transformation. To interpret these feelings as failure is to side with the caterpillar's fear. To interpret them as heralds is to align with the butterfly's destiny. Another potent herald is a sharp, intuitive clarity that cuts through former confusion, often arriving alongside the turmoil. It is a sudden knowing of what you must release, a boundary that must be set, a truth that must be spoken, even if it causes temporary friction. This is the blueprint asserting itself through the noise of demolition. It is the inner architect directing the wrecking ball. When you feel compelled to make a difficult but truthful choice amidst the chaos, that is not you creating more problems. That is you consciously cooperating with the rearrangement. You are wielding the chisel yourself, guided by an unseen hand, striking away a piece of the stone that no longer serves the form. To interpret these heralds is to change your entire relationship with the process. The financial worry that grips you in the night becomes a sign to look beyond the bank account to the infinite source that is restructuring your channel. The relationship tension becomes a signal to release the old dynamic and stand in the truth of divine love, allowing the relationship to transform or fall away as the new pattern demands. The feeling of being lost and without direction is transformed from a crisis of purpose into the sacred. Empty space between movements in the symphony, a silence pregnant with the next melody. You stop fighting the pressure and instead ask, what is being birthed in me? You cease lamenting the closed door and begin searching the horizon for the new path that is being revealed. This interpretive shift is the alchemy that turns the lead of panic into the gold of conscious participation. You are no longer a victim of the storm, You are the sailor who has learned to read the wind and the waves, knowing they are not here to destroy your ship, but to carry you to a shore your old maps never could have charted. This brings us to the most critical practice, the anchor in the storm. The very posture that determines whether you will be overwhelmed by the process or carried by it. It is the cultivation of an inner stillness so profound, so unshakable, that it becomes the fertile ground from which the new form can emerge. This is not a passive waiting, nor a numb resignation. It is an active, dynamic, and powerful standing firm in a silent knowing, a knowing that exists beneath the clamor of thoughts, beyond the convincing testimony of the senses, and independent of any external validation. When the walls are shaking and the ground feels unstable, this is not the time to run in panic, searching for a new foundation out in the world. It is the time to go deeper within, to that place which has never been touched by any storm, to the very center of your being, where the I Am resides, forever intact, forever at peace, forever one with the infinite creative principle. Think of a deep sea submarine navigating the most violent surface storm. On the ocean's surface, waves are mountains high, the wind screams, and chaos reigns. It is a realm of pure, terrifying force. Yet, just several hundred feet below, in the silent depths, there is a profound and absolute calm. The tempest does not reach there. The water is still, movements are gentle, and a perfect peace prevails. The submarine is not saved by fighting the waves on the surface. It is saved by descending into the quiet depth where the storm's power is nullified. Your awareness is that vessel. The chaos of rearrangement is the surface storm, real in its realm, powerful in its effect, but not the ultimate reality. Your practice is to consciously descend from the churning surface of your worried thoughts, your fearful projections, and your sense-based conclusions down into the silent depth of your own being. In that depth, you do not find answers to the surface problems. You find something far greater. You find the absence of the problem itself. You find the peace that reassembles all things. Consider a daily life example. You are in a crucial, heated negotiation. Voices are raised, positions are rigid, and the atmosphere is thick with conflict. In that moment, if you react from the surface, matching anger with anger, fear with defensiveness, you become part of the storm, and the outcome will be born of that chaos. But if, in the midst of that turmoil, you can consciously withdraw for a moment into that inner silence, you accomplish something miraculous. You cease to be a particle buffeted by the emotional weather and become the eye of the hurricane itself. From that centered calm, your words may carry a different weight. Your perception may see a third option invisible to the combatants, and your presence may inadvertently calm the room. You have not changed the external facts yet, but you have changed the entire spiritual atmosphere from which a solution can emerge. The negotiation within your own consciousness during manifestation is no different. The pressure, the apparent loss, the confusion, these are the raised voices of the old state arguing for its life. To stand firm in the silent knowing is to refuse to argue back on its level. It is to abide in a truth so deep that it needs no defense. This silent knowing is not a blank mind. It is a mind filled with a specific substance, faith, but not faith in something external. It is faith as the very substance of your being. It is the inner conviction, beyond all proof, that the spiritual law you have set in motion is immutable and cannot return to you void. It is the unwavering awareness that the divine rearrangement is perfect, intelligent, and benevolent in its action. When the phone does not ring with the expected call, this silent knowing does not frantically dial numbers. It rests. It knows the connection, in its right and perfect form, is being orchestrated. When a financial obligation appears without visible means to meet it, this silent knowing does not devolve into calculations of lack. It abides in the infinite nature of Source. It treats the appearance not as a truth to be fought, but as a shadow that must dissolve in the presence of the light you are steadfastly holding. Imagine a master potter at her wheel. A lump of clay spins before her, formless and chaotic. Her hands are upon it, applying pressure, shaping, guiding. But the true power is not in the frantic movement of her fingers. The true power is in the unwavering, silent, knowing center within her, the vision of the vessel she intends to create. That inner vision holds steady, and it directs every subtle adjustment of her hands. If she were to become distracted by the wobble of the clay, by the splash of the water, by the mess on her apron, and lose that inner silent focus, the clay would collapse into a useless heap. Her inner knowing is the governing force. You are the potter, and your life experience is that clay on the wheel. The chaos of rearrangement is the necessary wobble, the splash, the mess of creation. To stand firm in the silent knowing is to keep your inner eye unwaveringly on the finished, perfect form, the manifestation as a spiritual fact already complete in the invisible. From that place, you do not add to the chaos with fearful thoughts. You impose order upon it by the quiet power of your consciousness, held in alignment with the divine idea. Your hands, your actions in the world, will then be guided from this center, moving not from panic, but from a quiet assurance, doing the next right thing without straining to force the entire pot into existence at once. This is how you become a cooperative creator, not a frantic manipulator. You hold the silence and let the power that knows the way use your life as its instrument of revelation. This silent knowing, this steadfast inner posture, naturally unfolds into the next sacred discipline, the practice of non-interference. This is perhaps the most challenging, yet most liberating, step in the entire unfoldment. Having recognized the signs, having felt the pressure of the new, and having found your anchor in the depths, the great temptation now is to rush back to the surface and begin to help. The process along with human hands. You will feel an almost irresistible urge to manipulate, to control, to force solutions, to patch together the crumbling walls of the old structure in a desperate attempt to regain a sense of security. This is where the demonstration is most often lost, not because of a lack of faith, but because of a misdirected action born of a lingering fear that the divine activity is not sufficient on its own. Non-interference is not apathy. It is the supreme act of trust. It is the conscious decision to withdraw your personal sense of power, your human willfulness, and your mental scheming from the equation, and to allow the spiritual machinery you have set in motion to operate unimpeded. Consider the farmer who has planted his seeds in fertile soil. He has prepared the ground, chosen the seed with care, and placed it beneath the earth. His work for now is done. What would you think if you saw him return to the field each hour, digging up the seeds to check on their progress, poking at them, trying to pull the tiny shoot upward with his fingers to make it grow faster? You would know he is ensuring its death. His interference violates a natural, intelligent process that works perfectly in darkness and silence. The seed must be left alone to interact with elements he cannot see, the moisture, the microorganisms, the innate intelligence within the seed itself. His job is to tend the perimeter, to ensure the field is watered, to protect it from pests, but not to interfere with the hidden germination. Your prayer, your conscious realization of oneness with your good, is the planting of a perfect seed in the soil of consciousness. The chaos of rearrangement is the dark, fertile process of germination. To interfere is to dig it up with your worry, to poke it with your doubt, to try to force its growth with frantic, fear-based action. You must learn to tend the perimeter of your thought, maintaining the atmosphere of faith and gratitude while utterly surrendering the how and the when to a wisdom far greater than your own. Take a daily life example far removed from spirituality, healing a physical wound. When you cut your hand, an incredible, pre-programmed intelligence within your body immediately goes to work. Platelets rush to clot, white blood cells mobilize to fight infection, collagen is laid down, and new skin cells proliferate. This is a divine rearrangement at a physical level. What is your role? You cleanse the wound, you may bandage it to protect it, and then you let it be. You do not stand over it, constantly peeling back the bandage to see if it's healed yet. You do not try to mentally force the cells to multiply faster. You do not, in your anxiety, pick at the scab, reopening the healing tissue. You have faith in the silent, invisible process. You know that interference, the picking, the constant checking, the lack of trust, actually prevents healing and can cause infection or scarring. Your manifestation is the healing of a wound in your consciousness, the closing of the gap between your belief in lack and your awareness of abundance. The bandage is your prayer, your statement of truth. The itching and tenderness as it heals are the heralds of pressure. To pick at it with doubt, to reopen it with, how will this ever work? Scenarios to constantly check your bank account or email for proof of healing is to violate the process. Non-interference means applying the truth and then walking away in your mind, knowing the healing is proceeding under that bandage according to a perfect law. This is where you transcend the role of the anxious builder and assume the role of the approving architect. The architect has a vision. He creates the detailed, perfect blueprint. He then hands this blueprint to the construction crew. If he is wise, he does not stand on the site every day, grabbing hammers from the carpenters, telling the electricians where to run each wire, moving bricks because he doesn't like the look of the pile. He trusts the blueprint and the skilled workers to execute it. He makes periodic inspections to ensure the work aligns with the plan, but he does not interfere in every minute action. Your desire, when held in the silent knowing of its reality as a spiritual fact, is that blueprint. The divine creative power is the construction crew. The noise and mess of the building site are the chaos you experience. Your interference, your mental arguing with the process, your attempt to build it yourself with limited resources, your panic when a wall is framed in a way you didn't expect only causes delays and defects. Non-interference is the act of handing over the blueprint with absolute trust, and then occupying yourself with other things, holding only to the vision of the finished structure. You do not abandon the project, you abandon the false belief that you alone are the builder. You shift from being a frantic laborer, sweating and struggling in the dust, to being the calm, assured architect who already sees the building complete in his mind's eye, and who knows that every hammer blow, even the loud and disruptive ones, is serving that glorious end. This is the ultimate surrender, and in this surrender lies your ultimate power. For you are no longer blocking the flow with the clutter of your own small efforts. You become a clear channel, and the infinite rushes in to fill the space you have provided. And so we arrive at the culmination, the blessed state of grace that is the natural outcome of all that has preceded it, the conscious act of witnessing the unfolding. This is not a passive waiting, nor is it the tense anticipation of a hoped-for event. It is an active, reverent, and joyful participation in the revelation of what has always been true in the realm of spirit. Having ceased to interfere, having stood firm in the silent knowing, you now assume the most privileged role of all, that of the first witness to your own salvation. You are no longer the builder, nor even the architect standing anxiously at the fence line. You have become the one for whom the temple is being built, now invited to walk through its doors as they are hung, to feel the coolness of its marble as it is laid, to watch the light pour through the stained glass as it is installed. You are witnessing the invisible become visible, the spiritual idea taking on form and substance before your very eyes. This is the sacred transition from prayer to possession, from principle to demonstration. Imagine a master painter completing a monumental fresco on a vast, vaulted ceiling. For weeks, the work has been shrouded in scaffolding. The artist has been up there, alone in that dusty, cloistered space, laboring with intense focus. You, the patron, have heard the sounds, the scrape of the trowel, the clatter of tools, the occasional frustrated sigh. You have seen the signs of work, paint stains on the floor, sketches on the walls. You have even felt the pressure of your own anticipation, trusting in the artist's vision, but unable to see it. Then, one day, the scaffolding begins to come down. Not all at once, but section by section. This is the moment of witnessing. As each pole and plank is removed, a fragment of the masterpiece is revealed, a swirl of color here, the compassionate curve of a face there, a hand reaching out of the clouds. Each revelation is complete in itself, yet it hints at a greater, breathtaking whole still veiled. You do not rush the workers removing the scaffolding. You do not complain that only a foot is visible and not the entire figure. You stand in awe of each emerging detail, knowing it is proof of the greater glory coming into view. Your manifestation unfolds in precisely this way. The scaffolding of your old consciousness, your limiting beliefs, is being dismantled. Each piece that falls away reveals not the entire new life at once, but a fragment of it, an unexpected check, a chance meeting that feels divinely orchestrated, a sudden inner resolution to a long-standing problem, a door opening with effortless ease where before there was only a wall. These are the first sections of the masterpiece being unveiled. Consider a more grounded daily life parallel. You have placed an order for a custom-made piece of furniture, designed exactly to your specifications to fit a troublesome space in your home. You have approved the blueprint. This is your prayer, your clear desire. Then you wait. You hear nothing for a time. Then you receive a call the wood has been selected. This is your first sign. Later, an email arrives with a photo of the joined frame. This is another. Still, you cannot use it. It is not in your home. But each communication is a tangible evidence of the process moving unfailingly toward completion. The day finally comes when the truck arrives. The movers bring in the pieces, carefully wrapped. You do not snatch the wrappings off in a frenzy. You watch as they are methodically removed, revealing the legs, then the surface, then the fine details of the joinery. With each unwrapping, your certainty grows. You are not creating the piece in that moment. You are witnessing the arrival of what was created for you in the workshop. Your manifestation arrives in the same way, unwrapped by circumstance and delivered by grace. The unwrapping is the unfolding. The sense of deep rightness you feel when a solution presents itself. The effortless flow of a conversation that leads to an opportunity. The sudden availability of a resource at the perfect time. These are the protective coverings being peeled back to show you the substance of your faith. This is why gratitude is the natural breath of this stage. It is not a tool to manipulate more good into coming. It is the involuntary response of a heart that sees the pattern emerging. You give thanks not for the complete picture, but for the visible brushstroke that confirms the painter is at work. You give thanks for the single, unwrapped corner of the furniture, for it proves the delivery has been made. This grateful witnessing does something profound to your consciousness. It aligns you perfectly with the creative flow. It is the final surrender of how and when, replaced by a rapt attention to What is being revealed right now? You stop looking for the entire new landscape to appear on the horizon and instead marvel at the single, unfamiliar, beautiful flower that has sprouted at your feet, the one that could not have grown in the old soil. That flower is your evidence. That ease where there was once struggle is your confirmation. That synchronicity is the universe whispering, "You are on frequency." Witnessing is an act of high spiritual perception. It requires you to see with the inner eye, to interpret the small events of your day as chapters in a greater, holy narrative written by your own higher consciousness. The phone call that brings good news is not a lucky break. It is a panel of the scaffolding falling away. The sudden inspiration that solves a problem is not your own cleverness. It is the artist's hand revealing a new color on the ceiling. As you practice this sacred observation, a profound peace settles over you. The anxiety of the chase evaporates. You are no longer a seeker, running after your good. You have become a discoverer, finding it at every turn, in every unfolding moment, recognizing its approach in 1,000 subtle ways before it ever appears in its full, magnificent form. You live in the joyful certainty of the gardener who has planted the seed and now, each morning, walks the rows not in worry, but in wonder, looking for the first green breaks in the soil, knowing the harvest is already an inevitability, written in the secret language of life itself.